All right, it's Rich Carey from richonmoney.com, and today I'm going to tell you the Rich on Money philosophy on real estate. But before I do that, just real quick, let me kind of explain who I am. I have a website, again, called richonmoney.com. My name is Rich Carey, and I talk about how to responsibly invest in real estate. Kind of a weird thing, responsibly. I try to do it with the right amount of debt. And that's kind of my thing. So if you are enjoying today's video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe on YouTube and leave some comments. So let me get into this. This is my philosophy on real estate. Let me kind of read through these different things that I think are typical conventional wisdom for real estate, but I don't necessarily always agree with. And then I'll go down them point by point, and I'll try to do so quickly. If you use leverage to buy lots of houses, you can build a substantial wealth from appreciation. I don't necessarily agree with that. Renting a property is throwing money away. I don't think so. Buying is always better than renting because you are paying down the mortgage. That's not exactly right. If your rent covers your mortgage, then you're breaking even. This is like when you're renting your property out to somebody. A lot of people lie to themselves and think they're breaking even or making money when they're actually losing money. If you have lots of debt, no cash, poor credit, or otherwise in a poor financial situation, it is still a good idea to invest in real estate using creative financing methods. No money down, low money down, BRRRR method, cash card, your credit card advances, blah, 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 Is that smart? I'll talk about that. Paying off a mortgage is a bad idea. I paid off my mortgage. I'll give you my thoughts on that. Oh, I also paid off my mortgage, and then I paid off the next 20 houses that I bought. So first item, going to get started right now. If you use leverage to buy a lot of houses, you can build substantial wealth from appreciation. I call this the appreciation myth, right? The appreciation myth can be very confusing to people. Let me give an example. People always kind of talk about like, oh, if you buy a house in Hawaii or in San Francisco or in these like big cities, you're going to make a ton of money on appreciation. And everybody knows somebody who made like a lot of money. Everybody knows somebody who made a ton of money on appreciation. And they always kind of hear these stories, see the news, have friends that did so. Let me tell you my story. I bought a townhouse in Washington, D.C. in 2003 for $280,000. And a year later, that house was worth $400,000. So it shot up from $280,000 to $400,000 in 1 year. That's a huge amount of appreciation. I made a lot of money very fast. At that rate, if I kept doing that year after year, I'd become a very wealthy man very quickly. I thought, I got to buy more houses. I'm going to become filthy rich. So that was in 1 year, $280,000 to $400,000. This is in 2003. Well, guess what? I sold that house 13 years later. It was a rental property. I sold that house 13 years later. What do you think I sold it for? Appreciation, Washington, D.C. I probably sold it for a lot of money. Probably made a lot of money. Probably made a fortune, right? I bought the house for $280,000. Next year worth $400,000. 13 years later, I sold it for $400,000. What? How did I make that much money on appreciation? Now, of course, there's that like big story of like how much money I made in a year, and it sounds awesome. But when you look forward 13 years, and I still sold it for $400,000, and you do the math, I made about 3% a year, which is not a very big deal. Next item, renting a property is throwing money away. This is very common sort of wisdom, and I'm here to say it's not always true. When you crunch the numbers, you can find out that renting can be superior to buying in many situations. I'll tell you something about renting that people don't realize. when you rent a house, when you pay rent every month, after you pay rent, there is very little chance that you need to spend any more money on your house that month, because it's not your house. When you pay rent, you're responsible for no other money that month. Rent is all you got to pay. On the opposite, when you pay a mortgage each month, that's just the beginning of what you owe each month. You still got to pay a bunch of other expenses beyond the mortgage each month. You got to pay for maybe HOA, maybe taxes, insurance, repairs, something called capital expenditures, which is where you're spending money on future large repairs. There's a long list. If it's a rental, you've got to pay for like vacancies. So there's like a lot of extra expenses on top of a mortgage that you would not have on top of rent. There's a lot of articles written about this. Renting is not always worse than buying. Just trust me on that and do some reading about it. Buying is always better than renting because you are paying down the mortgage. This is actually not true. Have you heard of something called an amortization table? It's that crazy long table. You got like a 30-year mortgage, and you can kind of see that like at the beginning of the loan, you're paying more interest than you are at the end of the loan each month. Well, when you have a 30-year loan, and on the very first payment you ever make at the beginning, 85% of that first payment is actually interest, and only about 15% of it is actually coming off the loan. And that's true the first year, and it's actually true at the beginning of the loan. Very, very little of the money comes off of the loan each month, and most of it goes to interest. So you'll find that after 2 or 3 years of supposedly paying down your mortgage, if you like look at that balance and you're like, dang, I haven't paid this thing off very much. That's the problem with the way an amortization table works, is that you're paying so much interest at the beginning that you'll find that you really haven't gotten very far in paying down your mortgage. So buying is not always better than renting because you aren't paying down the mortgage as fast as you would imagine. Or you could say that your tenants aren't necessarily paying it down as fast as you would imagine. If your rent covers your mortgage, then you are breaking even. This is talking about when, let's say you own a house and then you have to move away. So you rent it out to somebody, and then you tell yourself and you tell your friends that you're making a little bit of money each month, or you're breaking even. And let me explain this. You move away, and then your buddy Tom is like, hey, you moved away, but what about your house? And you're like, oh, don't worry. I'm making $200 a month. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, the house rents for $1,000 a month. So I'm getting $1,000 a month, but my mortgage is only $800 a month. 1,000 minus 800 equals 200. I'm pocketing 200 a month. That is not true. You're not pocketing 200 a month. Why? Because there are lots of other expenses you need to pay to take care of that house. In fact, there's something called the 50% rule in real estate. About 50% of your rent actually gets eaten up by expenses, and only 50% of it is what you actually keep as profit. So let's do that math again. If 1,000's rent, right, and you have an $800 mortgage, and 500 is expenses and 500 is profit, 500 profit, $800 mortgage, you're actually losing $300 a month instead of making $200 a month that you're like telling everybody. Does that make sense? So you got to be, when you tell people you're breaking even or that you're making money, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to other people. Making money in real estate's actually pretty hard. You need to really do your math. If you have lots of debt, no cash, poor credit, or in an otherwise poor financial situation, it is a good idea to invest in real estate using creative financing methods. This is like that, no money down, and then use a hard money loan, and then after 6 months, refinance and take the equity out and buy more properties. use a cash advance to get like borrow money from your grandma to get to do real estate. There's a lot of gurus out there that'll convince you that when you're in bad financial shape, you can still invest in real estate. And I would say that that's a very bad idea. It's kind of like those infomercials where they show you rags to riches people that like got rich really fast. And then it's kind of like, you could be like this guy driving a Ferrari, he was poor and now he's rich. Yeah, there are people like that. But there are also a bunch of other people that are not on the show who tried to do what they did and ended up in a worse financial situation, and also probably put their friends and relatives in a worse financial situation. And you could probably, it's more likely you'll end up like them than you'll end up like the guy with a Ferrari and 5 apartment buildings, filthy rich, surrounded by beautiful women or men, depending on your proclivity. So what's the last one here? Paying off a mortgage is a bad idea. Is it? I paid off my mortgage, and I've met a lot of people that have paid off their mortgages, and I have actually never met a person in my life who has paid off their mortgage and said that they regretted it. That's myself included. Then I went and bought a bunch of rental properties, and they're all paid off. And I absolutely love the peace of mind of having no mortgage, and of having a bunch of paid off investment properties, and of having that like pure income coming in every month. And coming up on retirement and knowing that I won't have any kind of burden from mortgages at all. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Paying off a mortgage is a bad idea. I think it's pretty awesome. So there you have it. There's my philosophy on real estate. I'm bucking the trend. I'm different than everybody else. I think that people may have something that they can learn from me. So give me a thumbs up if you thought this might be useful. Subscribe to my page. Please comment where you're listening from. Comment what you thought of this. Do you agree? Which one of these do you think I'm off on? Like, let me know. Tell me where you think I'm off and leave a comment. And thanks for listening.